Hi, thanks for watching. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the game Quadropolis. In Quadropolis, it's a game for 2 to 4 players in which you are each going to be building your own little city. And the object of the game is to score the most points by putting different buildings into your little city and whatnot. If you want to just take a look at the board of what I have set up here, I have this game set up for 4 players. So each player gets one of these, which is a cheat sheet. It kind of shows you how you're going to score at the end of the game. It's very handy. Each player has their own player board, which is going to represent their city. They each have 4 architects, numbered 1 to 4. And we see the yellow players down there. He's got his guys there. And if we pan across over to the left here, we have the green and red player, and they've got everything set up there as well. In the middle of the board is the actual playing board. And again, I have this game set up for 4 players, and there's going to be 4 rounds. And so this is going to be round 1. And so these tiles are put on randomly upside down, and then they're flipped over. If you're playing with fewer players, you would remove some of these tiles. But for 4 players, we have the board totally full. We also have these red tokens here, which represent energy. And we have these blue guys here, which are going to represent some of the people in your city, workers and whatnot. And then we have the first player token, and then we have this guy who's called the urbanist, and I'm going to explain what he does in a little bit. So on your turn, what you're going to do, I'm going to be this player up here, and what you do is you pick one of your architects and you put them around the board, pointing inside. So for example, let's say I take the number 2 architect, and you see he's got a little arrow there with the 2 is. And I can put him around the board wherever I like, there, or I can put him something like that. Whatever it is, it don't really matter. But just for the convenience of the video, I'll put it there. Now, because he's the number 2 architect, I'm allowed to take the second tile that's available. Okay, so 1, 2, I get to take this tile, and I get to put it on my board. Now again, because I used my number 2 architect, it has to go either in the second row or the second column. So let's say, for example, I put it there. All right. So we'll come back to the main board, and then what we do is we take this guy here, he's called the urbanist, and he goes there, all right? So now the green player, he's going to take his turn, and again, he would take one of his architects, and again, it's all strategy. You'd just make up your own mind how you'd want to do it. Now, because the blue player's already played, he cannot play there, for example. The blue player is already there. Also, the urbanist blocks the axis, so the green player cannot go there because the urbanist blocks that and blocks this way as well. So he cannot play there, he cannot play there, or there, or there, okay? So he maybe will go here, for example. Because it's number 3 architect, he gets the 3rd tile, 1, 2, 3, takes that. And because it's the number 3 architect, it has to go in the 3rd row or the 3rd column, so he could put it here, for example. Obviously, be a little bit more thinking to it. I'm just going quick. Now, because he took this tile here, the urbanist moves. And then the next player would take their turn, and so on and so forth until all this is done. And we play that 4 times, 4 rounds. We bring out new tiles and do it again. So what do these tiles do? Well, there's a couple things here. I'm going to show you, let me show you another one. I'll give you this one here. If you take this, for example, is a store. And on it by itself, if you have it on your board at the end of the game like that, it would give you no points whatsoever. Because it's showing down here, it needs some energy in order to be activated. So you need to have one of these little cubes on this at the end of the game in order for it to be activated. This apartment building here, if you take this tile, what it's showing you too is it needs power in order to run, but it's also giving you 2 people that you can keep for yourself. And you can use it a little later on. And you can use people, for example, for this wharf. It is telling you it needs a worker there. So you could use one of these guys to go there to actually activate that wharf. And that's how you play. Now at the end of the game, again, anything that's not activated will not give you any points, but anything that is activated will. And you can do this at the very end of the game, or you can move these cubes at the end of the game how you want it done. Usually when I'm playing the game, I'll usually put them on as I'm putting the tiles on, just so I can see what I have and what I need. The trick is, though, that if you're ever left with anything extra, if you, let's say, have some extra energy at the end of the game, you'll be penalized for that. And likewise, if you have any extra guys hanging around at the end of the game in order to place them, you'll be penalized for that as well. So it's a very delicate balance between having enough of the energy and the guys to activate what you need and having too much. So what do all these buildings do? I'll give you a real quick overview. This is a store, okay, and it has a little basket there, and it's going to give you points for how many customers you have in your store, and the max is 4. So you want to get some guys to put into that store. And on the cheat sheet here, it explains everything really well. And again, I'm not going to get into it, but that's what it wants. It wants customers in your store. The more you have, the better you are. So next we have the apartment building. The apartment building is the only tile that you can actually stack on each other like that, for example. Okay, and that's going to give you points based on how many you have stacked up to a maximum of 4. Now, you can see that they each need energy, but when you have them stacked, you only need 1 energy. So that apartment building is 3 stories high. I just need 1 cube of energy to actually run that. Okay? And then we have a wharf. You'll get points for how many of these you have in a row on your board. So obviously if you have 3 in a row, it's going to score you some points. Again, a maximum of 4. And that's what the wharf does. We have the public sector building. I'll show you the board here. It's divided into 4 different color groups, 4 different quadrants. And the public service building, you want 1 in each quadrant. And you'll get points based on how many you have in each quadrant. We also have industry, a little factory there, and it'll score you points for how many stores and how many, I believe, wharfs are around it, is how that scores. We have parks, and they'll score you based upon how many apartment buildings it's around. So actually, if you have 4 of these around one apartment building, you'll score a lot of points. And plus, what the park also does is at the end of the game, if you have an extra energy hanging around, it'll absorb that as pollution. So you can get rid of some energy that way. So that's how you play Quadropolis. It's a very thinky game. I wouldn't say it's for younger kids, it's probably for older people. If you like puzzles, this would be a game for you. If you don't like thinking or getting stuck in that way, this will not be a game for you. It's easy to set up, it's easy to learn. If you're interested in playing Quadropolis, let me know. Thanks for watching.